Hi everyone, Lux here. And you might be wondering, why did I release a short film, hopefully last week, if my editing schedule has gone the way that I wanted it to? And the simple answer to that is because I wanted to. This is going to be a much shorter video, but this is overall going to be a behind the scenes look behind Midnight Writer. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any footage from any like bloopers or major behind the scenes footage from when we were on production. So I decided to record the editing process up until the sound bit because I forgot to do sound. Yeah, I forgot. I think I got so locked in with trying to get the sound mixing as best as I could make it that I did forget to record the entire process of doing that. But I do have a afterword about it, I believe, talking about the process of it, which I am very just looking forward to, like kind of sharing, putting on this format. Really, I think to start off this kind of video in general, really, is what started Midnight Writer. Midnight Writer was kind of just something I wanted to make for the anthology. Make it without any dialogue at all. That was a challenge I set myself for the film. Was I want to make something without writing any dialogue, and I want to communicate the tone of the film throughout this, like the visuals, the sound design, the tension, and the themes of the film. And to me, I feel like I did that relatively well. Something that I really enjoyed about making Midnight Writer was working with like different people. Leo specifically was really just like hands on with the idea. Like he was also really tall, so it made it really easy to create a very intimidating, masculine character. Essentially, it was really cool to kind of just like work on that, have this film center around these two characters of Casey, who I intentionally always left very like gender ambiguous, even in the script. I wouldn't refer to Casey as a he or she, just purely like very neutral pronouns, like very gender neutral, right? And that was something I was really wanting to explore in terms of because I knew that I was going to be playing Casey, and at the time I was very much on the fence of like, do I want to play a character that is specifically he him masculine, that kind of thing. Nowadays I've become a lot more secure in my own identity as kind of someone that's more in the non-binary area of the whole gender rainbow, if I'm being honest. But yeah, it was really fun to kind of just work with that and kind of play around that within the script. And it led to some very interesting discussions between myself and my good friend Sam.
Sam and I, we were talking about how kind of the analogy for Midnight Writer is almost feels like a trans allegory, right? The way that I look at it is that Casey is this writer, and again, there is a writer and is also dealing with their own gender identity. And obviously, we have Leo's character, which is just in the film known as the figure, is much more of a masculine figure than I would argue Casey is. It's kind of like that, not repression, but rather it's more like societal masculine expectations are like chasing down Casey. Their whole existence is kind of dominated and constantly under threat from this idea of traditional and societal masculinity, right? Given how like you have these red pill influencers promoting traditional gender roles and everything like that. I feel like for us sort of trans folks are often ridiculed because we are not masculine enough or we're not feminine enough or we don't we don't subscribe to what we were assigned to at birth essentially. So like again, I was assigned male at birth. There's a lot of the things masculinity wise and those kind of traditional gender values that I do not agree with because I think we live it's 2026. We should be a lot more progressive than we are about it.
The idea was that Casey is obviously dealing with their own issues around their gender identity. Obviously, they're throwing themselves into this work where, again, it's like they don't leave a lot of time to think about themselves. They don't really think about that, but they are chased after by this idea of what masculinity should be. And I always approached Casey as kind of a very gender neutral character anyway. Again, like I said, mostly because of kind of how I saw my own identity in relation to characters that I would play. So that worked out really well for me and kind of like that understanding of Midnight Rider. And one of the things I really want to talk about with the edit for Midnight Rider is the fact that having like re-edited it and looked at it again, I'm actually like, because obviously I didn't watch the original version that I had made for the anthology. I think, and I don't think I've watched it since, right? I've not watched it since it was screened at anthology. So like I was kind of going into this project kind of off vibes roughly, and kind of like, okay, like what was the feel that I was going for with this? What did I want to create? What was something that why did I want to create this in the first place? And that's always something I approach with making films is, why do I want to make this film? Why do I feel drawn to want to make this film as opposed to something else? And for me, that meant that if I was going to create Midnight Rider, if I was going to create this film that was about ideas of masculinity and everything like that, I wanted to make something that was like very much talking from the visuals and the sound design rather than the dialogue. I feel like dialogue is great, but if you can tell a story through visuals and sound design without dialogue, I think that works even better, honestly speaking. One of the things I like to aim for as an editor is creating a very streamlined process of how I go about editing. So for me, as you'll see in the behind the scenes clips, a lot of it for me was wanting to just make the process as step by step as possible, right? One thing as an editor that I always try to excel in is creating a streamlined workflow that makes any project work a lot easier in organization than it really needs to be. This is more of a strategy that I picked up from another editor. He was talking about kind of the different stages of editing he goes through, which is initial, better cut, and perfect cut. And I believe also talking about the VFX cut and the sound cut, and I've kind of like moved those around where I kind of where I sort necessary with my own content and also when I make films. What I like to do, as you'll see over here, I have 7 different timeline folders. Basically, the initial folder is going to be our initial cut of the film. So that's just going to be getting everything in place. This is also called an assembly cut. We have the rough cut, which is kind of closer to what I'm looking like. And then perfect cut is when I have locked in the picture, essentially, before color grading. Before doing any color grading, anything like that. Then I do the VFX stuff, then I do color grading, then I do sound, then I have like its own special little like folder just for exporting, so I know which one it is which, essentially. If I'm editing a film or short film or anything like that, I like to do it in one timeline so that I know exactly where everything is. And then as I go through the process of like refining the cut and cutting it down further, I duplicate that timeline and I put it into a new bin, right? So obviously it starts with the initial cut. That's like the baseline assembly cut, essentially, for those who are a little bit more knowledgeable about film editing, because the term of that is assembly, rough, and perfect. And obviously the names don't really matter. It kind of whatever works for you. My approach with editing was to just like make it so much easier on myself than I did when I last edited it. Because when I last edited Midnight Rider, I had no sense of organization whatsoever. So it created a really annoying situation where I'm searching for different files. I'm like, okay, here's take 10 or scene 10, take 5. As you'll see in the behind the scenes recordings, the organization of all of the clips was just kind of wrong in some cases. A lot of them were correct. A lot of them were mislabeled.
What shot is this? Oh, okay, this is scene 3? No, this is scene 4. Yeah, sorry. I know what I'm doing here. I swear, I promise you.
So I kind of just like, oh, I'm just going to do it myself, and we're just going to go scene by scene by scene in the bin folder, the footage. And that was something that I really just wanted to do. And again, it made actually editing Midnight Rider so much easier. It was great, honestly. I love when I can make something a lot easier for my brain, because for those who aren't aware, I have ADHD and autism. So that means I have a very particular way that I like to work, but I was also prone to chaos at sometimes, and it's kind of an organized chaos is like how I like to see it. The main thing I was looking for when I was actually editing Midnight Rider was, do these clips flow well into the next clip? I think there's only maybe one or two occurrences where I feel like they didn't flow as well as they should have. So I'm talking about that scene where obviously the Leo's character, they reach out to Casey's shoulder while they're asleep in the park, and then it cuts to like Casey falling off the bench, for instance. And a lot of that was down to the fact that like I was not good at acting at that point. I can still debate whether I am or not. But the main thing was, it in my mind it didn't work as well as it could have, and I think if I had been a bit more stringent on going for another take, or changing something about it, I think it would have looked better. I just think because it was a very disconcerting um, view from a side profile to then behind Casey, I think that didn't work as well as it could have. Another shot that I really wanted to get right was obviously Casey waking up and like falling to, well, waking up and falling to the floor, and then like crawling away from what was going on. Admittedly, when I was filming that, it was very rushed because that was also when we were going to be moving that apartment. I was filming because we were literally on like a deadline, very tight deadline. I literally had Sam and Leo round for like an evening. I was like, we're gonna film all the shots here, get everything we need done here. And it was kind of just a case of like, I want to get this stuff done as soon as possible, essentially. Looking back, I definitely should have left more time to actually making sure we got those clips and those shots the way that I originally envisioned. At that point, it was the first time, like, since making Cheese Slap, I think, it was the first time I was like making something again. So I hadn't made anything since Cheese Slap, I remember. And Cheese Slap was very much just like tied together with like shoestrings and tape to make sure it worked. I don't have the clips for Cheese Slap anymore, otherwise I would potentially re-edit it. But that's all good. I'm happy. I'm happy with how Cheese Slap looks. So when I was making the sound cut of Midnight Rider, one of the things that I wanted to aim for was overall improving kind of the way I approach doing sound effects and Foley. And obviously, considering this is a 2-year-old film, at this point, I didn't have a lot of time to redo a lot of the sound. If I'd given myself more time to edit it, I probably would have. But I also did want to get Midnight Rider done where I could. So I decided for a lot of the sound, exclusively most of the sound, I used Pixabay. Pixabay is a really good resource website where you can just find like a bunch of like different like community sound effects, music, clips, that kind of thing. And it's really good for like kind of sorting between authentic community made stuff and also AI generated stuff. So you can kind of avoid the AI generated stuff if you want. And that's something I most certainly just try to do on a daily basis at this point. One thing that while I was editing that I came across, and this is what I love about filmmaking, is it's the things that you don't plan that end up being some of the things that you really like doing. So for instance, as you'll see in this video and the behind the scenes clips, I noticed that I could create a motif for the man by having almost this garbled static wind sound associated with his full screen appearance, essentially. This all started from just one clip in the film, and I'll show it right here. So what if I told you that was literally just the wind on the camera mic? I had this idea that for the shots that Leo was in where you could see most of his body, maybe barring his head in one of the shots, I was like, what if I have this almost like pervasive static sound essentially. And obviously that ended up just being like some wind noise that I cranked up the gain on to make it a lot more like disconcerting and also allow it to peak a lot more. That was something that I really enjoyed doing, and I enjoyed messing around with that. It was really fun just like kind of coming up with this on the spot and being like, I have a motif. I have a motif for this guy. And it was really fun. Like it's some of the things I really like about filmmaking is just finding those things that like you don't think about and then you add to it and you're like, oh, actually this works really well. Yeah, I there's a lot about Midnight Rider that ultimately I really enjoy as it being one of my kind of more like debut films, I guess. I guess I would call it like my debut film outside of like the filmmaking society film festival. But what I really enjoyed with doing Midnight Rider specifically is I liked exploring, I liked challenging myself to do something that was like, I'm making this without dialogue. And that's something I really like with films is that you can it's like doing like a Dark Souls or Elden Ring challenge run, and you're just like, I have to complete this playthrough, but I'm not allowed to get hit, I'm not allowed to use healing items, I'm only allowed to use left-handed weapons or something to that effect. With filmmaking, you can kind of do the same thing of like, I want to do this film without dialogue, or I want to do it in black and white, or anything like that, basically. And you set yourself a theme and a goal for the actual film itself, and you deliver upon that, and you end up making something that's really fun, really awesome to just kind of watch and experience as well. Because during that time, Midnight Rider was very much something I was stressing about, like I am with I guess the autopsy report today is like I was stressing about Midnight Rider so much, but I loved every minute that we were on set filming it, and it was just so awesome. It was also very much just independent filmmaking. Like we didn't really have a call sheet. We didn't have a schedule. It's just like, here are the shots I want to get done. Bam, 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 bam. This is what we're doing, and I really enjoyed doing that. And I am really happy with how like the film came out, and it is really fun kind of looking at it now and kind of seeing like how I have gone from making Midnight Rider to now making a almost a science fiction horror film, and I'm very excited to just kind of get into that when I can. It's gonna be really cool, and I really want to showcase it with I really want to share it with everyone. I definitely plan on making like a behind the scenes video for that as well. I think that's gonna be really fun. I want to make sure I record every moment of editing it, every moment of like making it, that kind of thing. It's gonna be really fun, and I'm looking forward to that a lot. Anyway, that's all I have time for today. I really hope you enjoyed this kind of video. Let me know if you want to see something more like this in the future. I definitely have some ideas of what I could do in terms of just showcasing more stuff like this. If you're curious, if you're really curious, I'd like to signpost you to some of the other videos that I might have. Specifically, I want to obviously signpost you to Midnight Rider if you haven't watched it already, or if you want to watch it again and you just enjoy supporting the channel. I would really appreciate if you left a like on the video and also subscribed, and also turn on that bell for notifications whenever I upload. And yeah, I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and yeah, bye bye.